what we do. Hello, Studio 108 community. I am so glad to be back with you. It's been a while since I recorded a podcast, and who better to get us back in our routine, back in our conversation than Anne Ondrey. Anne is coming in a couple weeks with a workshop on the Bendy Yogi and how to help people who maybe they don't even know they're struggling, but how to help our hypermobile people that really, really love yoga and show up for us. So welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much. Always a joy to be here and be with you.
I know we go way back, Anne and I, and Anne is one of the people I most respect for her study across so many genres and so many lenses when it comes to yoga, when it comes to movement, when it comes to mobility, when it comes to health and well-being. So I'm so glad you're here, Anne, because I know that this is going to be a really interesting conversation.
Well, true with you, of course, as well. We're just lifelong seekers and learners. One of the things about this workshop that people may not understand is that even if you do not consider yourself hypermobile as a yogi, if you practice yoga for a long time, you may have trained yourself into hypermobility, because that is true with me. If you look at your body, Tracy, and my body, we're like polar opposites. But I have places in my body that are now kind of hypermobile that I have to make sure I have enough muscle control and awareness when I'm doing my asana.
That's super interesting. And I feel like that points to your underlying premise in offering this, which is how can we as yoga teachers be really responsible, and how we're cueing and what kind of cultures we're creating so that this organic push to be more mobile, push to be more flexible is respectfully tempered for people.
And if you were going to move to the place of seeking stability, which is a big push right now, there's a big push that everybody's adding weights to their classes and everybody's doing strength work on how much can you lift. If that stability isn't organic, you're going to end up more injured than you were before. Stability is really important, and strength is really important.
But yeah, and I really see them as two different things. Like strength, mover muscles, stability, stabilizing groups, like within the joint. Like, would you say that?
Yes, I would say that your capacity to stabilize and then your capacity to load are two different things.
Yeah.
Strength is in terms of how it's being all over social media, is being promoted now, gets into how much is your load. And hopefully people are using smaller loads. In my own body, I will tell you that I've tried to do some of these classes that integrate weights, and I haven't used very large weights, 5 to 8 pounds. And I can't, at this point, I've had to back it up because I cannot do the work that I was trying to do, as lunging and the HIIT classes, right? The interval training classes, because an hour or two later, I would feel my inner groins and my pelvic floor. So in my own body, I started out very tight neck, shoulders, jaw, gripping the jaw. And I kind of got that unwound. And now I've still got a ton of tightness in my pelvic floor and my inner groins. And so I was moving from there. My core just, doesn't want to talk to me terribly well. And I'm not a typically hypermobile person. But the key is, and it's always the key, the number one focus is always the breath.
Well, because really the underlying of the utilization of the whole thing is rather your nervous system.
Yes, because your breath is your door into your nervous system.
Because so here we are with this huge topic, like it seems so simple. And here we are with all these different puzzle pieces on the table. You said something interesting to me, because when you greeted me, you asked me how my headaches were. And then you told me that headaches often can be associated with the hypermobility. So can you kind of like talk people through like what exactly is hypermobility and what are the associated kinds of?
I will do my best.
Okay.
one thing for people to know is hypermobility syndrome disorder was only put on the map in 2017. So it's thought that it is very underdiagnosed and very late in being diagnosed in terms of a person's experience. The diagnosis with which many people are familiar is fibromyalgia. Mm. And fibromyalgia has often a very close relationship with hypermobility. And there are a couple of other conditions that tend to be in this mix as well, which are postural orthostatic tachycardia, called POTS. And those, if you've ever had anybody in a yoga class pass out, it can be vasovagal, but you also can be this inability to pull the circulation, pull the blood up from your legs. So you lay the person down, you put their legs up, and they, boom, right, they're back to normal, and they need to wear compression socks, particularly when they fly. And another one is mast cell activation syndrome. And so these are diagnoses that they don't fall into the medical model, which is find it and fix it. There's nothing you can do for mast cell activation syndrome, and it's not fun.
What is that? What are the symptoms of that?
I knew you're going to ask me that, and that you have to come to the workshop to find out.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Clearly, exercise is an analgesic. I never can say that word right? It's a pain modulator. And the reason it's a pain modulator is because it affects your central nervous system, and your central nervous system is the big boss. If you're playing a video game, you got the big boss. It's like, that's your central nervous system. It's always in charge. It's always calling the shots. It's hugely affected by your life experience. If you've had a lack of a diagnosis of anything, or a misdiagnosis, or a poor surgery, or adverse childhood experiences, which we call ACE, all right, all of these things affect your central nervous system and our capacity to feel with clarity. Because moving is not about thinking. Being is not as much about thinking. It's about feeling. So we've trained ourselves out, and I don't mean this in a negative way, like we've done it on purpose or something. I mean, it's cultural. You have to sublimate when you move into life. You go to kindergarten, you can't just scream when you want to scream. And it's actually one of the problems that they're having in schools right now, is if you read about school classroom management. I was reading a teacher on social media who's talking about, he said, I've always prided myself in my classroom management skills. And he says, I cannot get my pacing. He said, I generally have one kid who's just, I have to spend so much energy. This is a central nervous system issue. Mm-hmm. Right. Tomorrow I go to my local high school. Once a year, the health teacher has me come in and talk about the nervous system. And she does a unit on the nervous system, and she talks about apps. They have to find an app for relaxation. They have to use it. Last year for the first time. And now at our high school, it's not mandatory, but the teachers have their choice. They have looks like the shoe racks you used to put on your door that you put your shoes in.
Yeah, the little pockets.
Yeah, the pockets are for the phones now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they hang this thing on the door in the high school, and people come in and they put their phones in the pockets. So if a teacher has that on the door, right, it's not that, because it's not mandatory school-wide, it's per teacher. And then, because I told her the last time I came before COVID, they were on their phones, and there were kids looking at me, but they weren't seeing me. They're
under their desk tapping out entire conversations.
It's unbelievable.
My son does it at the dinner table. It's insane.
So I told her I won't come unless you collect the phone. She said, "Oh, I already do that now." So but she had them as in preparation for the talk. She had them go into their phone and check how many hours they were on their phone. And there was a girl in the class who was on her phone on a regular basis for 14 hours a day. I was like, are you kidding me? So, okay, so we have this. And Instagram too has fed into this hypermobility, because you have a lot of yogis getting on and the excessive, I don't want to say excessive strength, but you can't go to strength without clarity, right? And then
And you pointed out you can't go to strength without stability.
you can't go out with that. You can't go without stability. I clearly don't have enough stability in my body at the present moment to do those high interval training classes. I wish I did, but I don't, because I can feel it right away. My body says, whoa, what'd you do?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are lifting heavy without stability, to be honest. I see a lot of those pictures. The hips are swinging all over to get the weights up. And it's like, yeah.
So either way, go one way, it's like everybody's going to stretch and bend and hang up, do everything. And then the hanging upside down actually is the aerial yoga. I'm all for that. I think that's great. I didn't mean that, but right. And then the other way is like, now we're all going to lift big weights. And so we're going to be stable. And clearly the learning and the teaching is right there. It's right in the scriptures, right? Which is correct action.
Yeah.
Right. It's right there. It says correct action. So, and the thing is that the correct action for you is not the correct action for me. It's very individual, just like pain is very individual, right? So we've got to figure out, how do we develop this relationship and this communication between our nervous system through our sensory experience? One of the just absolute geniuses in this kind of work is Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen.
Yeah.
She's 80 now. And the new class she just sent out, which I think I'm going to sign up for, is how to not brace, but be stable and strong. Because bracing is a big part of this too. People brace and then go. Now you have to do a certain amount of that when you lift. I get that. But as a mode of being in the world, it's not effective. All right, I'm going to brace so then I can move. Maybe not. Right? Because then this rigidity, right? And a lot of people, I think, adopt rigidity as a way of dealing with their hypermobility. And then that's just like, when you get too much salt in your soup, you try to fix it, and
you can't save it.
I mean, you're saying all this other stuff in and you taste it and it still tastes really salty.
Yeah. Interesting.
Did I answer your question about migraine? Going back to that, that's how we started this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've got like that nervous system conversation that I found really interesting. My understanding has been like around the structural of it, right? And how you think because you're working migraine, it's just happening here, but it's actually happening like in my deep core and posturally and through, I was an ultra cyclist, so I was postured over my bike for like hours and hours a day. And interesting too, because I was postured that way at a time in my life that was my way of working with incredible stress and life pressure. Like that was my way of processing through trauma. And so I feel like even that psychological imprint going into the structure and the holding of that posture, it's like a recipe for just trouble down the road. And then, of course, doing yoga and then coming into because I'm hypermobile and I loved yoga because I was flexible and I could do all those things and I could take all the binds. And then I did yoga with a little bit of a pushing power, more kind of mentality for a lot of years. And it's been like it was a very short-sighted joy, a really short-sighted party. And a lot of years of just trying to untangle that and figure out how can I stabilize, how can I strengthen, how can I re-regulate the nervous system so that all those pieces and parts come together and the pain isn't quite as chronic. Anxiety, all of it.
Yeah. You have done this has been your journey, and it is beautiful to watch because it has been really tremendous. Your commitment to it and your capacity to sit with this and do something different than what you had previously done. at a significant potential cost to yourself, because let's just say it out loud. This is not popular. What's
Oh, no.
popular is doing more, more, going faster. I look at me, bending more. The whole thing, right? And you know what the Navy SEALs say? They say, slow is fast.
You
So
say speed hides need, and I quote that often.
I know that's Perry Nicholson, Stop Chasing Pain. I have to, one, if you don't follow Stop Chasing Pain and you're listening to this, you must follow Stop Chasing Pain.
Yeah, no, and right now, Stop Chasing Pain is all about the lymphatics, which is so interesting for me too. Like, this is why I don't regret, and I've been able to kind of let go of some of that previous patterning, is that there's so much interesting experience when you get past the more.
Yeah.
Like, this is the deep diving into your whole body form. Like, there's a lot more than having a six-pack ab. My body is way more interesting than that. There's a lot more to experience than just holding a dancer pose,
Well, my anatomy teacher, Dr. Kathy Dooley, she says, never trust a six-pack ab that doesn't soften on inhalation.
Yeah.
Because then it's just bracing, right? And then you don't have full access to your your diaphragmatic pump, which is where your power is.
Right.
And the pressure that you create through your...
And the oxygen that needs to come in.
Yeah.
And the nod underneath the voice that needs to project so that you can create what you're creating. It's like, it's not just even limited to the physical.
So one of the things I think that has happened in America as yoga has become more popular is that yoga has become a bit of a Band-Aid, right? So you go and maybe you like heat. And I'm not saying you shouldn't like heat. Heat can be great. It can also be not great depending on if you have chronic inflammation. Then maybe you want to think about some of the cold. There's the whole cold world with Wim Hof and those practices. And I think it's a lot, when I go to the high school and I say, what do the adults in your life do to relax? And they all look at me and I say, it's okay. You can say whatever you want. I don't know your parents or your, caregivers. And they look at me and they say, drink? I say, yeah. So going to the yoga studio for a class that gives you some stress relief, once a week, yay. And it's all good. The drinking is not so good, right? For your central nervous system. Lots of problems with that, particularly when it gets to be excessive. Then you got real problems because it's down regulating for a bit and then it's super up regulating. But depending on the experience that you want, because the choice is always with the practitioner. If you want, as we said, if you want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into these practices, I give people a challenge. Can you slow it down? And can you see how it feels? Don't think how it feels. How does it actually feel? If you're going real fast and you want to go real fast, keep going fast. Great. Don't come to the workshop. Do what you want. It's fine.
We're so friends.
Right. But if you want it, and particularly if you're having symptoms, right? If you have migraine, if you have IBS, if you have pain, right, in joints, and you want to explore maybe what that's about. And also you can't come in when you're sedentary and just start trying something, particularly if you're hypermobile. If you're really deconditioned, you have to be very, you need to work with a yogi one-on-one. You need to have someone who can guide you into that process. But if you want to slow it down for the purpose of having more of a sensory experience so that you can feel, right? Because it's the sensory information that comes in that informs your central nervous system. And then you can start to see some patterns. Where am I tight? And where am I dumping into to get flexibility so that I can do this bind? Mm-hmm. Right. So this piece moves really well in my mind, right? I can make it move. And then the other part, not so much. There's a Pilates teacher in, I took a hypermobility training with Susie Hatley, who's a wonderful yoga teacher in Western Canada. And we had a talk from several experts. And one of them is a Pilates teacher. And she talked about how what she often sees is sleepy obliques in hypermobile people. I thought that was an interesting observation, and a lot of movement, right, in the flexy parts, like the neck and the lumbar. So you take like a lunge. People love to get in. You go to a big studio where there's a hot class and there are, lines of people, and you look at the person in front of you in a lunge, and dollars to donuts, they're probably arching their lumbar spine. So they're pushing forward in the lunge from their low back. Now, I'm not saying you should never do that, but if you do that on a consistent basis, you're compressing your back body. And another thing that...
and you're contributing to sleepy core too.
Yes, because you're lengthening that. So it's, she also says that she finds with hypermobile people that they have a very dominant front body, except for these sleepy obliques. And they tend to have very little awareness of their back body.
Well, you've said awareness a couple times, and I think that that's really key to the whole conversation. And when you look at
everything,
right, well, yeah, because I'm just going to say, like, when you look at what is yoga, like, it's a practice of self-awareness, self-discovery, and that embodiment piece is really, really critical. Being able to come in and be aware of yourself against a society, a culture, and probably a personal habit of kind of escaping ourselves.
Which is extremely understandable, because life is extremely overwhelming. Right now, I love this book, and I've been teaching out of it, and it's a book called Bodyfulness: Somatic Practices for Presence, Empowerment, and Waking Up in This Life by Christine Caldwell. And you've heard a lot about mindfulness, bodyfulness.
Yeah.
I
That's
love that.
clever. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So
I wrote it down.
The idea of we're just such a brain, I think, therefore I am, Descartes said, right? And we're such a brain dominant culture that sensing can feel very scary, particularly when we all have patterns, we all have trauma, we all have history. Like you say, the bike position for you. For me, it's the cello position.
Yeah. And the chemistry of that.
6 hours in a cement room in a conservatory playing the cello. It's like, all I have to do is go to that position and I get triggered.
Yeah.
I mean, now at a mild level, I'm not comparing this to some of the things that unfortunately people have experienced, but I'm talking about body
memory. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that's really important for folks that are hypermobile, I believe, is to slow it down and to be able to feel joints, right? So is that actually your shoulder that's moving, or is it your spine? Is your neck helping your shoulder? Can you move your shoulder without moving your neck or your spine?
Yeah, the compensators, the awareness of what's gripping and grabbing when you're moving this or that, like all of it.
Yeah, but also just feeling movement at a particular place, because lack of clarity between your nervous system and your sensory input is a little bit offline.
Yeah.
And this does happen too if joints are decentrified, right? You get the clear input when a joint is in the center, but when it's a little bit off-centered, right? It's a little bit, and a lot of people who are, particularly a lot of hypermobile yoga teachers, they have incredibly shallow hip joints. That's why they can do Pavishta Konasana with their face on the floor, right? And everybody goes, "Oh, I wish I could do that." No, you don't.
I say that all the time. I'm like, yeah, don't.
Some people did that for years, they're all having hip replacements.
Yeah.
So so it has a lot to do, your hypermobility has a lot to do with your joint formation. And can we figure that out, through conscious, aware movement?
Well, I know that when you present and when you teach these workshops, you come with a wealth of information. I also love that anytime I'm studying with you, I go home with a list of resources because you are so generous with like where things come from and helping people connect to next steps in their journey. But also you give a lot of embodied experiences for this. So I know that it's not anything we're going to do today, but I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to like just the embodied experience of putting some of these ideas into my own internal vocabulary. Yeah.
Just for clarity, we do offer this online as well, but only in real time.
Yeah.
So if
So live stream only, you guys.
live stream only, if you're coming online.
And all you have to do, like I know usually on the website, there's a live stream option. Don't worry about that. Just
Right.
sign up for it. And Anne will personally help you because it comes through her Zoom.
For my Zoom.
Yeah.
And then I always have a PowerPoint presentation, which has tons of material in it. And then I share that PowerPoint with everybody. For instance, there is a app for teens who are hypermobile. It's called WebMAP. And it's called WebMAP Teen.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if it says teens or if it's just for teens. I think if you just if you look up apps for WebMap, you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another called StressScan for adults that I think came out of Harvard. And these are kind of check-in, assist. We always encourage people to check in. What are you feeling? What's your intention? Blah, blah, blah. But this is I think with the StressScan, you actually put your finger on the screen or something, and it gives you some kind of a readout. But there are a lot of tools now. Information is growing.
Well, I'll put those resources down in the comments, you guys. So look below for them. Yeah.
It's just
and also contact for Anne. Do you know that Anne does body work? She's a really gifted Reiki master, and I mean, seriously, really gifted. And she does incredible body work, intelligent work around helping people who have just injuries or imbalances or tweaky things.
Fascia is a very huge and important component to hypermobility.
Yeah.
Right. So the fascial stretch, Anne and Chris Frederick with a fascial stretch or Frederick stretch therapy. I'm trained in that modality. And then the other modality I'm trained in is neurokinetic therapy, which is David Weinstock, which is an amazing system of understanding the relationship between facilitated and inhibited muscles. And it really has completely changed my whole world.
You guys, Anne is like the Sherlock Holmes of figuring out what's going on in the body, and she takes time and patience and is an incredible listener and a decoder of kind of the movement and the signals that you give when you're moving to help people kind of find where things are going awry.
Well, you're very kind, but we can all do this.
Yeah, we can all do this, Anne, but man, you've helped me so much. You help people so much.
So learning to feel with attention, to notice the breath. It is everything goes back to these principles that we all learn the first time we walk into a yoga class, which is follow your breath, feel sensation.
Yeah.
And the ego, my ego in particular, right? All of us wants to create fast and new and fancy and we really don't, I'm all for having fun. I don't mean that, but it's these principles are very simple, which is.
Well, like when you say slow is fast, that's
fast and less is more.
Yeah. And that comes from like a lot of study and master training work, that insight.
And silence is great.
All right, my friend, we're going to end here and let people click over to the website and sign up for this because I know it's going to be really fascinating. If you would like to practice with Anne, you can. I will include her website and you can click through there and see what she offers. It's not like a long list, but very, very potent, helpful practices. And so see what she's got and pop in if you can. All for your best and highest good. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. Always good to be with you, Tracy.
I know. So, so good. I'll see you in just a couple weeks. You guys, it's November 12th, 12:30 to 3:30. Thanks for following.